Hey, it's Tyler Scott 11 with the results of the Lost Ones Draft League Season 3. Up on screen is my MVP for the season, which I'll talk about after I go over everyone's scores. So, for the main part of the season, we had last place was the San Antonio Sylveons and their coach Lovers R Us. They had 1 win, 10 losses, 2 of which were forfeits, and 30 KOs. 11th place was Ferguson for Alligators and their coach Kangas, with 2 wins, 9 losses, and only 24 KOs because they had even more forfeits. They actually left the league server when they had a few matches left, and no one could get into contact with them after that. So we just had to give their matches as forfeits because it was too late to find a replacement by then. 10th place is the New Jersey Ninjasks and their coach Sola with 4 wins, 7 losses, 45 KOs. Also with 4 wins, 7 losses, but 51 KOs is 9th place, the Hawaii Pichus and their coach Wingheart. 8th place, the Tampa Cocos and Scoots, their coach, with 5 wins, 6 losses, and 55 KOs. 7th place, the Middletown Meltons, their coach JPB Gators, 5 wins, 6 losses, and only 49 KOs, less than Scoots, but I believe they were put into the higher. It was an automatic counter thing for it, so I believe they were put higher up because they won their match against Scoots. 6th place was the Sydney Salamences and their coach Munchkin, who wasn't actually there for half the league. This team kept going between different coaches. At one point, getting taken over by some kind of a scammer, but like it's just someone who was going around pretending to be different people to enter a league. They, for some weird reason, after they took the replacement spot, they dropped out randomly after 2 matches, then came back as another person, claiming to be a different person, but it was really the same person. I just don't understand why. So then they got replaced by Weedle King after that for the last few matches. So they had 6 wins, 5 losses, and 53 KOs. 5th place was the London Blacephalons and Mr. Lewis with 7 wins, 4 losses, and 48 KOs. 4th place, and putting them into the playoffs versus the first place, was the Hawaii Whalelords. Their coach Sims with 7 wins, 4 losses, and 55 KOs. 3rd place was my opponent in the playoffs, the Tuscaloosa Tyrantrums and their coach Joshua, who took over for Rasix of the Hades Houndooms. That was towards the beginning of the league. The original owner of the team dropped out and got replaced pretty early on. So they had 8 wins, 3 losses, 57 KOs, and they beat me in the playoffs, putting them into at least 2nd place. As of this recording, I will not be giving the results of the playoffs. I'll give those once the next season starts, since I have to record this before the playoffs have finished, based on the timing of it, that the other matches are taking longer. So then I was in 2nd place, bumped down to 3rd from losing the playoffs. I had 8 wins, 3 losses, and 62 KOs. And I was, for the regular part of the season, I had the most KOs. And then 1st place, 9 wins, 2 losses, 58 KOs, was the Glasgow City Glooms and their coach Nevik. So I'll go over the MVPs that I had for this season now, which the main one was definitely Dimitri the Jellicent. I pretty much just picked this as filler originally, and it ended up being a really, really useful Pokemon in almost every match. It's just so good defensively. I mean, especially because it has so much HP. The defenses aren't amazing, but there's just so much HP plus recover plus leftovers. Pretty balanced defenses there when being bold max defense. Scald, Will-O-Wisp, Toxic, Hex, Nightshade, or Shadow Ball. It has a lot of good options. Not a ton of variety in attacks, but a lot of good support and defensive options. Then my second MVP was probably Silvally, just because it could do so much. Being able to run any type and so many coverage moves makes it so that every single match has Silvally in it, running something different. So Silvally is my second MVP, and third MVP would be Mimikyu. Saved me a bunch of times. And surprisingly, Mega Charizard Y was not especially useful this season, just because there was so many people that drafted stuff that the other teams, there was just so many things that could deal with Charizard Y altogether. So I didn't even bring it in a lot of matches, and the matches that I did bring it, it was not especially used. And I only used Mesprit once, but it was pretty useful when I used it that one time. Araquanid and Ribombee both got a lot of use. Araquanid probably more so. Fortress, pretty decently used. Surprisingly, I didn't get to use Serperior much either for the same reasons as Charizard. I actually ended up mostly using defensive Pokemon for a lot of the matches. They ended up doing a lot more than the offensive ones. And Zapdos actually didn't get used much, surprisingly, despite being a really important Pokemon in the last 2 seasons when I used it. So I'll consider drafting something different than Zapdos going into the next season. But I might still want Zapdos anyway, because I just like having the option there, and it pairs well with Mega Charizard Y. But I also might draft something different for my Mega next time. Maybe Mega Charizard X instead. But I had an appreciation video for Jellicent just because of how great it was. So I really love Jellicent. We put in so much work for the season. And I'll just go over some of my Silvallies. I have a bunch of Silvallies. Okay, those weren't the ones I used. This is the one I used. One of the ones I used. So I named all the Silvallies that I used Narrative Gundam so that they could that way no one could guess which one I was running based on the name. And also just because most of them, with the memories that I was running, the typing, it fit more with having them named Narrative Gundam instead of the Hainu Gundam, which is one of the Silvallies that I use. This is the offensive one, which I only used in the early matches, really. I don't think I used it much after that. This was the one that ran Fairy, I think. And this is the one that got the most usage. Ground Silvally. Actually, I think this one is the first one that I used for ground. And then I switched over to this one, which was originally Fairy. And then I used this for ground because it fit better with the later matches that I was having. So yeah, Jellicent and Silvally, definitely the MVPs of the Torgoth Typhlosions. Sadly, I didn't get to use Typhlosion much either. And I think that was everything that I had. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I mentioned everything that I had and how much usage it got. But the next season will be starting up in a few weeks after this. probably won't have... Actually, yeah, I probably won't have the videos for the battles starting until late December or early January, actually. Because first, the playoffs have to finish up, and then there's going to be a break while stuff gets set up for the next season. And then drafting has to happen after the signups. So the battles themselves probably won't start until late December or early January, because then the battles won't even be uploaded until at least 2 weeks after I actually have the battle. So that's the projected schedule for the next season of the Lost Ones Draft League. If anyone wants to join it, then check out my competitive Pokemon Discord server linked in the description. So, see you next time.